Welcome to an introduction of the LMC Power Standards, where school library media programs are at the core of learning, and library media specialists work in partnership with classroom teachers to design, implement, and assess research projects that focus on specific standards. I'm Dale Truding, Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning, and I would like to introduce Susie Rabat, an LMC teaching and learning consultant who was an LMC director in District 25 and a teaching and learning facilitator in District 25. She's an author of 6 books for children that are all related to information media literacy skills. The purpose of our presentation is to provide you with an introduction to District 25 K-8 LMC Power Standards, how the standards evolved, the organization of the standards, the role of LMC directors and classroom teachers in the implementation of the standards, and the implementation plan. The roles of the teacher, the student, and the LMC director have changed significantly over the past 5 years due to the amount of information available 24/7, the development of new technology tools, the results of the NAEP scores in the United States, the introduction of the Common Core standards, the focus on the new skills, habits, and attitudes students will need to attain in order to be college and career ready. D25 believes that students need to own their learning in order to be ready for life and a career as a lifelong learner. D25's Vision 2020 and Wired Framework have also influenced this document. There has never been a time in education quite like the 21st century. It is the only century where knowledge seeking by the masses is a daily activity. Due to this change in paradigm, it is critical that D25 students learn to generate questions, locate and use information, and share their knowledge to a broader learning community, beginning in kindergarten. It is also important that the district provides a written curriculum that is used collaboratively by all teachers and LMC directors in order to ensure that all students are having multiple opportunities to complete short, focused research tasks as well as sustained research. It is not about the product produced, but rather about the research process. The research process involves a variety of skills that need to be learned and practiced. These skills are outlined in the ELA Common Core Standards and the AASL Standards for the 21st Century Learner. By launching the implementation of the LMC Power Standards this year, we are positioning our students to be able to apply these skills in multiple situations, including when they will be required to take the PARCC assessments beginning in 2014.
I would like to share with you the process of how the District 25 LMC Power Standards evolved. In 2007, the American Association of School Librarians published the standards for the 21st Century Learner. They were published in order to provide a framework for learning in an information-powered world. A close look at this comprehensive document reveals that, believe it or not, there are 55 benchmark skills identified just for 5th grade. So many standards and such limited contact with students. What do we teach in the Library Media Center that truly matters? How do we identify the knowledge and skills every student needs to learn prior to leaving the current grade? Simultaneously, the District 25 Assessment Committee was investigating the concept of power standards developed by Larry Ainsworth. According to Larry Ainsworth, power standards are prioritized standards that are derived from a systematic and balanced approach to distinguishing which standards are absolutely essential for student success from those that are nice to know. They represent the safety net of standards students need for success in the next grade and beyond. Last year, as many of you remember, we received an overview of the ELA Common Core Standards. It became apparent that many of the skills and concepts addressed in the ELA Common Core Standards are also addressed in the standards for the 21st Century Learner. It is important to note that the Common Core Standards were the filter used to identify the LMC Power Standards. We then made a decision to focus on approximately 6 ELA Common Core standards that address research, collaboration, technology integration, and presenting and sharing knowledge. As we study the Power Standards, you will notice that the Common Core standards were written in a developmentally appropriate manner. These are minimal expectations for all students. Some students will be able to go beyond grade level standards, and the progression of skills allows this to happen, a natural way of differentiation. As you look at the slide, you will notice that research is the common thread that runs through all of the standards that we have identified. Before we take a look at the standards, we would like you to turn to someone near you and summarize what you heard and understood about the first part of our presentation. Before we start the next part of our presentation, we will give you a few moments to share your thoughts as a group. If you have any questions about the first part of the presentation, please write them in the box labeled Part 1 on your response sheet. At the end of this presentation, your LMC director and building administrators will collect your questions and address them in a timely manner. Now, let's take a look at the organization of this booklet. Please turn to the section labeled Skills at a Glance that follows the introduction. It will be approximately 5 pages into the document. The section entitled Skills at a Glance allows you to track the progression of Common Core benchmark skills from kindergarten to grade 8. The text in bold font indicates a word or phrase that was changed or added to the benchmark from the previous grade, building rigor and depth from one grade to the next. A quick glance at the information in the table will give you a sense of what students accomplished in previous grades and what they will be expected to accomplish in the following grades. The Power Standards are color-coded for each grade level. 2 pages are devoted to explaining and reflecting on each standard. I will refer to them as standards pages, which are printed on colored paper, and companion pages that are printed on white paper. Let's take a look at the standards page first. Choose a grade level, select a colored standard page, and we'll get started. The Common Core grade level benchmark is listed in the gray box at the top of the page. In this example, the abbreviation W-5.7 stands for Writing Standard, 5th grade, Anchor Standard 7. The benchmark appears in the gray box below the standard. Again, words in bold font indicate a word or phrase that was changed or added from the previous grade level. The phrase that appears in bold font indicates the expectation that 5th grade students will use several sources when conducting their short research. In 4th grade, students used 2 or 3 sources when engaged in short research projects. Below the Common Core benchmark, to the left, is a column labeled Unpacking the Standard. When you unpack a standard, you analyze the language in terms of what the standard is asking students to know, understand, and do. The correlating AASL benchmarks are listed in the column to the right of Unpacking the Standards. These are the essential information literacy skills, media literacy skills, and technological literacy skills students must acquire to be effective users of ideas and information. The third section of the page is labeled Implications for LMC Instruction. The ideas listed here are suggestions of learning activities to support this standard. Although many of these learning tasks are directed toward the LMC director, they can also be directly implemented in the classroom. Connections to the National Educational Technology Standards, generally referred to as NETS for students, appear on the bottom of the page. These standards are broad and general, not grade level specific. Sometimes only a portion of the NETS is addressed. However, they are very important standards and reinforce what the Common Core and the AASL standards are asking of students. If you are a kindergarten teacher, these may appear to be very lofty. you will be able to adapt them to meet the developmental needs of your students. Let's move on to the companion page that follows this standard. Each companion page is printed on white paper. Again, the Common Core benchmark appears at the top of the page in the gray box. This page is divided into two columns. Let's start with the assessment column on the left. The assessment strategies and tools listed here are suggestions, just starting points. Most of these ideas are taken from Assessing for Learning, Librarians and Teachers as Partners by Vi Harada and Joan Yoshina. The focus is on formative assessment to guide instruction and student self-assessment. Self-reflection questions appear at the bottom of the page and can be used during or at the end of a research project. Who owns the learning? According to Art Costa and Bina Kalick, the purpose of self-evaluation is to have students learn to become self-reflective. If students graduate from our schools still dependent upon others to tell them when they are adequate, good, or excellent, then we've missed the whole point of what self-directed learning is about. Throughout the Power Standards, references are made to Harada's and Yoshina's book on assessment. Each LMC will receive 2 copies of the book Assessing for Learning, available for teacher checkout. The column to the right of assessment addresses habits of mind. Habits of mind are the attitudes or dispositions successful people employ when faced with a problem that is not easily solved. Each habit is described in 3 sections. First, the habit is defined. Next, sample behaviors clarify what this habit looks like in action. Finally, the stages of development show the shift from teacher in control to student in control. This important shift is necessary for students to develop ownership of this disposition. The stages can be incorporated in student self-assessment tools or used for reflection at the end of a project. Before we talk about implementing the standards, we would like you to take a minute to walk around the room and find someone not at your grade level. Please summarize what you heard and understood about the organization of the Power Standards. Before we start the last part of the presentation, we will give you a few moments to share your thoughts as a group. If you have any questions about the organization of the Standards booklet, please write them on the response sheet in the box labeled Part 2.
As you know, the focus of research at the elementary level for the past 4 years has been the design and implementation of research projects using the Understanding by Design UBD framework. These are longer research projects that last between 4 to 8 weeks and usually guide students through the entire research process. The research process includes the following steps: building background knowledge, generating questions, locating and evaluating resources, reading, viewing, and/or listening deeply, note-taking, synthesizing, constructing new knowledge, sharing, presenting new knowledge. Questioning and reflecting are critical components throughout the entire research process. Research takes on a social context as the thread of collaboration runs through all stages of the research process. The ELA Common Core Standards refer to longer research projects as sustained research. The grade level teams will continue to do at least one sustained research project per year in grades 2 through 5. The Common Core ELA standards place an emphasis on short, focused research that builds a student's capacity to become an independent researcher. Beginning to prepare our students to become independent researchers requires time for LMC directors to collaborate with classroom teachers to plan short research tasks. This year, each grade level team will receive a half-day release time to work with the building LMC director to plan these short research tasks. The ideal goal for each grade level team is to complete 2 short research projects that are co-designed, co-taught, and co-assessed with a library media director. However, if it is not feasible to implement 2 projects that are co-planned, co-taught, and co-assessed during this first year because of scheduling, then one short research project should be completed with the LMC director, and the other one should be planned with the LMC director later in the year and then implemented and assessed in the classroom. This can be a natural part of your social studies or science teaching. Classroom teachers, please remember you are not limited to just 2 short research projects per year. You may complete as many of these projects as you choose. The Power Standards will be there to guide you. From start to finish, a short research project should last no more than 3 days. It can be targeted to address 1 to 2 research skills as defined in the LMC Power Standards. It is important to remember that when teaching a short research project, you do not go through the entire research process. The research is driven by a content area question or an essential question. All research should include student-generated questions. When our presentation is complete, you will have the remainder of the afternoon or morning to study the standards as grade levels or mixed grade level teams to determine what short research projects you may want to address. Sharing these research projects as a staff will give everyone an opportunity to hear some new ideas. Your next task will be to work out a schedule with the LMC director so that all classes have equal access to the LMC and its resources. Each building will customize this process to meet the needs of students and staff. I know many of you are probably wondering, where will you find the time to introduce these new power standards? They will need to be implemented by 2014-2015 when the ELA Common Core PARC assessment will be launched. This assessment will replace the ISAT. Throughout the year, your building administrators and LMC directors will lead discussions about the types of LMC activities and projects that support the power standard and ones that may need to be adjusted or replaced. As you are implementing the LMC power standards, please feel free to teach them as a substitution for some isolated skills that you may teach in the reading curriculum that are similar to some of the ELA standards in this document. You may also choose to just teach these as a part of your social science unit or as an extension of one of your science units. Since many of the components of our reading curriculum will need to change in order to align with the Common Core ELA standards, this will be a year of opportunity for you to document how you implemented the LMC Power Standards and what you thoughtfully eliminated in your ELA curriculum in order for this implementation to occur. Please remember that your entire class does not need to be present to teach these skills. We realize that students are in and out of the classroom throughout the day. The emphasis of this presentation has been on research, but we would like to remind you that the standards for the 21st century learner highlight 2 core approaches to learning: reading and inquiry. Please refer to the last 2 pages in your document to see how the LMC supports reading and the Common Core. If you ever have any questions about what you might eliminate or how to schedule time in the LMC, Dwayne Main, our new Director of Teaching and Learning, and I will be happy to assist you. We have now concluded our presentation. Please turn to someone near you and summarize what you heard and understood about the implementation part of our presentation. We will give you a few moments to share your thoughts as a group. If you have any questions about the implementation part of the presentation, please write them in the box labeled Part 3. LMC directors and building administrators, please collect your questions and photocopy them. Then send a copy to DSL, attention Dwayne Main, Director of Teaching and Learning. To the future.